What's going on with the Sydney property market? In this video, we'll talk about the areas that have performed the best in recent times, the areas that are starting to drop, and the areas that will drop the most over the next 1, 2, 3 years. So stick around. This is going to be amazing. You can see my screen already. This is the CoreLogic mapping the market tool. And what you can see here is this legend. What it says is that the darker the shade of purple, the more expensive that suburb is. I'm going to go through that, and I'm going to go through 12-month growth history and 3-month growth history as well. But this is just absolute. So the brighter the red, the less expensive the area. This includes units, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. And the darker the purple, the more expensive the area. So you can see, obviously, I'll just bring that up. The more expensive areas are kind of, obviously close to the harbour, more than 2 mil. The eastern suburbs, it makes tons of sense, right? And then as you go west and southwest towards Liverpool, Cabramatta, all these areas, you can see that there's pockets where they haven't really grown. They're not as expensive as others. So it's really difficult to get this kind of view, but you can see, hey, what's going on here? It's like a super expensive area, Castle Hill, obviously, nice area. And then right next to it, Blacktown, not so expensive. And, you can draw inferences like over the next 10 years, over the long term, Blacktown probably is not obviously going to become as expensive as Castle Hill, but there might be some catch up. So over the long term, you can draw your conclusions from these areas that are less expensive. But guys, the thing that I really wanted to show you, first of all, is the 12-month change. Okay, so this is the 12-month change. So the darker the purple, the more that the house prices increased, and the lighter, the less. No place in Sydney has gone backwards in the last 12 months, and you can see that the areas that have done the most around Ryde, Putney, this one here, Abbotsford, there's so many. The eastern suburbs have been not too bad, but then there's this kind of enclave here for all of our Indian community who are watching. Box Hill has been just kind of like one of your guys' favorites. It's done tremendously well. Everywhere in Sydney's done well. Some areas less so than others in the last 12 months, like Blacktown, and I think that's a good area to invest for the very long term. Westmead, of course, this is just last 12 months. Preston hasn't done as well as other areas. And so it kind of, one thing that I want to show is, why is an area like Box Hill or Rouse Hill or Riverstone doing so much better than some of these other areas? It's because that is where a lot of new land is released. Now, normally when land is released, prices don't do well, but this is affordable land and it's gone up a lot. And what it spells for me is danger. When you go to the Crocoseum in Australia Zoo here in Queensland, there's a Steve Irwin thing saying danger, danger, danger. That's what I see, the writing on the wall for these areas around here where the fundamentals aren't very strong. Areas closer to the city haven't gone up as much. There's a lot of correction waiting to happen in these areas around Box Hill. Now they're still going up, they've gone up, there's no doubt about that. People have made hundreds of thousands of dollars, but just beware of the correction. Now the really interesting thing that I want to show you is the 3-month growth rate. Okay, finally we start to see some in the red. This is what I've been saying 6 months ago, that Sydney is overpriced. I did a video just 2 days ago on why Sydney is now going to fall, and in fact is already falling. There's always markets within markets, the kind of heat map is testimony to that concept that there's always markets within markets. Some areas in the last 3 months in Sydney, like Bankstown and surrounds, like Fairfield Heights and surrounds, our favorite, over here as well. Riverstone, past Schofields, that's still going pretty good. And then there are other areas, here that are starting to fall in the red, in the pink. Always markets within markets. I wouldn't put any of my money in anywhere in Sydney right now if I want short-term results. But you can see that the market has shifted. You can see that the premium suburbs, eastern suburbs, harbourside suburbs closer to the city suburbs, they've started to retract as much as 7% already given this darkness, 7% already in the last 3 months. What happens in any property cycle is that the premium suburbs, they grow the most and they grow the first. They're the first ones that start to go up, shoot up in value, and then a year later, 2 years later, 3 years later, whatever the case is, those premium suburbs, they're the ones who fall the first as well, and they're the ones who fall the hardest. So, anyone who's trying to sell you, a unit in Bondi or one of these, I know there's a few buyers agents out there trying to spruik, $3-4 million luxury homes in places like Vaucluse, saying that incomes are really high there. People don't lose their jobs. Those areas are the most volatile. Just look at it on a chart. So you can see that the epicenter of growth is starting to fall in Sydney. And then what normally happens in cycles is that this epicenter, the ripple, goes further down south, goes further west, goes further north. And so the areas that are the most expensive, the ones that have started falling, and then what you'll see over the next 6, 9, 12, 18 months, all the way out to, to Box Hill and beyond, down past Liverpool, all of these areas will start to fall as interest rates go up 0.5%, 1%, and I think interest rates will probably cap out after increasing about 1.5%. So Sydney should fall. I'm not saying should fall, I mean, that's not a good thing, but it would likely fall by overall, let's say 10 to 15%, maybe a little bit less, a little bit more, in the next sort of 1, 2, 3 years. And these areas that are really over leveraged, like Box Hill, Western Sydney, they are probably going to be hurt the hardest. They're a little bit outside the firing line right now, but this effect will go out. So what's the conclusion? I mean, there's many conclusions that I've just shared, but is this the right time to be investing in Sydney? Probably not. Of course, none of this is financial advice, but the thing I want you guys to understand, right, is that everyone says Sydney is its own city. It's like its own country. It doesn't, marry up with the rest of Australia. It's always going to do well. It doesn't always do well. You can see it in the red in front of you. In the last 30 years, Hobart has performed better than Sydney. So it's not unique. It's not like Sydney will always make money. And we want to make money in the short term in property and the long term. We need that capital growth so we can pull equity, buy another property, etc. Sydney, none of this is financial advice, but for mine, you can see the writing on the wall right here. It's not really going to outperform. Does that mean that nowhere is going to outperform in Australia? Does that mean that Perth has got a similar map? Hell no. Perth has got the complete opposite map. In the last 3 months, it's completely booming. It's hard to find a property, hard to buy a property in Perth and other places across Australia as well. But Sydney, I don't know, it's not where I'd put my money. And in the super long term, yes, it's going to go up, right? But do we really want to put our money in somewhere where it goes back 15, 20%, then rises 50%? No, we want to put our money, law of compounding returns. We want short-term gains. We want to put our money where we get 10, 15% in the first year or the first 6 months, and then it continues to compound. So Sydney, for mine, you can see here, I mean, there's always markets within markets, but I wouldn't touch it, Sydney. If you want me to do a similar video like this for Melbourne, comment Melbourne in the comments below. Melbourne, put that comment in the comments below, and I'll do a similar video. My name's PK. I hope you got a ton of value, guys. Catch you later. Bye.